Now, we've all seen somebody being hypnotized on stage by a hypnotist for entertainment purposes, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who's really interested in finding out what it's all about. So John Francis Leader is here to tell us all about the art of hypnosis. John Francis, thank you so much for coming in with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's such an interesting concept, the whole idea of, you know, your mind and hypnosis and how it works. Talk us through the overall concept and what it's all about.
Sure, the only thing I do, I think, more than hypnosis is talking about it, because people have so many questions about it. Hypnosis is a very natural state of mind. A lot of people think of it as something a bit strange or a bit unusual, because like anything else, if we don't know what it is, we do tend to wonder about it. But it's actually something people do every single day of the week. Now, there's a few different kind of classic examples of it. One would be when you read a book and you really get lost in it if it's a good book. The other one would be a great film. If you see a film and you really get immersed in it, a TV show as well. A good TV show, a great guest and great presenter is going to draw people in. But you know, sometimes when you're watching those things, you get a bit lost in imagination and you're not hearing traffic outside or other people in the room, and then you kind of wake up a little bit. The other example would be when you're going for a walk and you get lost in thought, sometimes while driving as well. If it's a long drive, we kind of get a bit lost in thought. That's hypnosis.
Really?
So it's actually happening every single day of the week. So all a hypnotherapist does is help a person use that state of focus and imagination to achieve personal goals in their life, things that are important for them.
Okay, well, let's talk about that then, because I know that just from hearing friends talk about it, I know that certain people go to get hypnotized to maybe stop smoking, to help them with weight loss, maybe anxiety. Are they the type of things that people are being hypnotized for?
Very much so. Hypnosis can be used in any situation where somebody has a change they want to make. So they have something personal they want to achieve, and they know they want to make the change, but for whatever reason, it's just not happening. I think we all have those little examples in our own life. Even if we're doing very well in other areas, there's just that one thing that we're trying to do better at, and we try and we try and we try, not getting there. So very often that happens because we have a habit built up. We're just used to doing things a certain way. The other reason is because there's a hidden motivation behind it. Sometimes if we have a bad habit, there's a bit of a reward in it for us, something like that. So a few examples pop to mind there. So when we're using hypnosis, we're just changing the way somebody thinks about something. So some of the common areas people would work with are, I'd specialize a lot in work with anxiety and depression, fears and phobias. So the fear of flying, of driving, of public speaking, there'd be some common ones. Also then habit or lifestyle or health-based areas. So smoking would be a big one, weight loss and those types of areas too. But they're really only examples. And I've done thousands of consultations at this point, and no matter how many times I think I've heard it all, somebody comes in and they mention something I haven't even heard of. And usually hypnosis can help as long as it is something that's within their control, but they haven't just been able to make that step forward yet.
Okay. Now, say for example, I have one of however many, problems. Let's just use smoking as an example. Now, I don't smoke, but just say I smoke. I come to you. I want to stop smoking. Then what happens? I mean, because I think people have misconceptions about hypnosis. I mean, am I aware that you're speaking to me? Am I off asleep? How does it work? And
the mechanics of it.
And how do I feel when I am sitting in your, clinic or whatever? What's the experience like?
So what it feels like, it's a totally conscious experience. It's very much like that example of watching the film or reading the book. And it's funny actually, because when you're reading a book, you have your eyes open. Obviously, people associate hypnosis with having your eyes closed. But you have to have your eyes open to read, of course. So it's the same thing really with hypnosis. You have to have your ears open, so to speak, to be able to hear what's being said. But it's like a daydream state. It's probably the closest example to it is when we were a kid and somebody told us a story. We'd lay back and we'd daydream and we'd imagine things. And, after that story, you'd actually feel different. If it was a very magical story, you would be taken away to that other world. And as adults, we haven't lost that way of thinking, really. It's still there.
We just need to tap into it.
We need to tap into it. We need to get used to it. Of course, in some cultures, in Eastern cultures, very often, there is a lot of, meditation or visualization or focus as part of day-to-day life. We all have that ability, but often we just don't know how to use it. So the actual experience of visiting a hypnotherapist is really just coming, having a talk about what it is that you want to achieve, and usually closing your eyes, although even that isn't mandatory, and starting to picture and to visualize the way you want things to be. Now, the reason that works, a little bit of science there, is because we now know through MRI machines that when you visualize or picture something happening, you actually activate the same types or parts of the brain as when you actually do that thing.
Okay.
So it's almost like you leave after the session having already formed the habit that you wanted to form. So it's like when you go to do it in day-to-day life, you think, oh, well, I've already done this.
Okay.
So it seems quite natural.
It's very interesting when you say that. Would I be right in saying, because I'm just interested in how it actually works in your own head afterwards. I mean, are you putting, like, say, let's use the smoking example again.
Yeah.
Like, so basically, if I want to smoke, or if it's weight I want to eat, are you putting kind of alternate thoughts so that when I would want to have a cigarette or want to eat or whatever, all of a sudden it kicks in, no, I'm going to go for a walk instead, or do you reprogram?
Very good, yeah. Perfect. That's a very good way of looking at it. It will depend, as you said, on what the area is. If it's smoking, of course, it'll be very different than something else. But that really is what we're doing. It all relies on somebody wanting to make a change, and that's always very important. We don't work with people who aren't, very, keen to make the change.
Because I've heard as well people say, oh, you want to quit smoking, oh, go and see a hypnotherapist. But unless you want
you personally
to do it,
have to want it. Okay. So most people, of course, personally do want to make the change, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But if you have a friend or family member forcing you to do it, that's not the best thing. You can encourage the person, of course, to do it, but they themselves have to want to make the change. But if they want to make the change, hypnosis doesn't make it completely effortless, but it does make it substantially easier, because what we will do, as with the example you mentioned of going with the walk, is we'll essentially talk them through what it's like to be a non-smoker. It's a bit like rehabilitation. If somebody hasn't walked for a while, they need to get the muscles working again. So if somebody hasn't been a non-smoker for a while, they've forgotten what that's like. So what do they do at the time they used to light a cigarette? There'll be that kind of instinct, oh, I better go for the cigarette because I'm just used to it out of the force of habit. It's like a reflex, like the blink reflex. So we'll do that. We'll sit down with them and find out some ways that are healthier for them to be able to achieve the same goal. So it might be going for a walk, it could be anything else.
And they can pick something that they like as well.
That's a very important part of it. Things they like and aren't any more unhealthy than the thing they're trying to give up. So at least as bad or better. Do
you think that people have gotten the misconception just from being on holidays? I don't know, Keith Barry, he was here a few weeks ago. And I've seen him hypnotise people on stage, and then all of a sudden you're doing crazy things, and people are worried that, that they have that idea of hypnosis, but that's not correct in the medical sense. I get in trouble the odd time. I won't mention who, but I had a well-known hypnosis performer getting in touch because I was explaining how it worked, you see. So sometimes I get in trouble for that, but I think people need to know. But it's a mixed blessing, really, stage hypnosis. It's a little bit like the way something like memory is a human ability. Memory isn't a therapy, or it's not for entertainment, but somebody remembering something impressively, that can be used for entertainment. And there are therapies, of course, that help people with their memory. So hypnosis is a little bit similar. It's a way of focusing your attention that exists, whether you use it for therapeutic or medical purposes, or whether you use it for entertainment. So it is a mixed blessing, because on one hand, people go, oh my God, this looks a bit strange. There's some weird things going on here. But to be honest with you, most of that is, I don't want to say trickery or illusion, but it's somebody wanting to go along with the experience. Otherwise, why would you get up and volunteer? Think about it. There's no hypnosis in the beginning. You get up and you volunteer to do it. So people who are up for a laugh. But there's a benefit there as well, though, because sometimes people will sit there, they'll look at that on television or in person, and they'll say, wow, if this can do this, maybe it can help me overcome my panic attacks, my anxiety, depression, insomnia, whatever it might be. And that's wonderful. Very quickly, if people want to find out more information about hypnosis and the therapies that you offer, how does that work? Well, if they want to visit hypnotherapy.ie, if you're one of the people who can't spell hypnotherapy, type it into Google. It's the first one that comes up. So hypnotherapy.ie, we have a free information pack there that we like to give people, because everybody has heaps of questions. And if you do have any more questions, your viewers, they're very welcome to contact me. I'll be happy to offer some advice. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about that. And I'll have to get you to hypnotise me now afterwards. Absolutely. Now we can do that. Not that I smoke, but I'm sure we'll think of something. We'll find something. Thank you very much. John Francis Leader there. And if you do want to find out more information about his website, it is hypnotherapy.ie. And I'm sure if you log on to that, you'll get lots of information, tips and advice. Now, we're going to take a quick break. Still to come during the week, I got to go along to see colonic hydrotherapy. It was definitely an experience. You can see it in part 2.